Welcome back to Simbright Fashion Academy YouTube channel for another interesting tutorial. So in this class I'll be teaching you how to sew this beautiful draped gown with ruffles below, as you can see right there. So I'll be teaching you the tips and tricks to draping the center front bust line. Okay, so if this is what you want to learn, please stay till the end of this tutorial. Thank you. So we'll be drafting right now. So you need your basic bodice pattern. You need the front and the back. So this is the back basic bodice. So the first thing we are going to do on our basic bodice pattern is to divide the shoulder seam line. So my neck width is 3 by 3. So if I divide it, this is half of it. I'll connect it to the bust point. This is my bust point. So after connecting this, I'm going to mark my neck depth. That is my cleave line. So from this 3 by 3, I'll come down by 6 inches. Okay, so I'm coming down by 6 inches. That is my neck depth. Then from the shoulder right here, this is my shoulder. From this shoulder line, I'm going to come down by 6.5 inches on this line. So on that line at 6.5 inches, I'll just go ahead and create a line. So from that line, I'm going to take my over bust measurement. So from here to here, 0.75. From here, I lost my video clip, but I'll be explaining in detail what I did right here. So I have to first connect. When I drew this line, I took my over bust that at 1.5. So from this line, from this center line I made, I at 0.75 this way, 0.75 this way as usual. So I now came in with my ruler and connected the over bust that. Okay, sorry I lost my clip. So this is what I did. So after connecting it, the next thing I did was to connect this line to the 0.5. So I placed my ruler from that mid shoulder line. I connected it to the 0.75 over bust this way. Then I first came in with my ruler to create the neckline to that point of 6 inches. But on the second thought, I thought of using my hand to get exactly the curve I needed. So I have to go from this center midline and freehand it to my taste. Can you see? So I think that is the shape we have on the thumbnail. Then another thing is, if you don't want to expose your bust, okay, that's your cleave, instead of taking at that 6 inches, you can come up at 5 inches. So this is 5 inches. I'm using the other part of my tape. I believe you understand. 5 inches. So at this 5 inches, I will also draw another line in case you don't want to expose your bust. So this is what we'll do. We'll also freehand it to that point. But I think we'll work with what we have at that 6 inches. So we'll have exactly the effect on the thumbnail. So that is what I did right here. So now on the under bust line, this is my under bust. I'm going to take my under bust measurement, divide by 4. So my under bust measurement divide by 4 will give me 8.75. So I'll mark my 8.75. So what I have here remaining, I have 1.75, or I have 1.5 remaining. So I'll just go ahead and put a quarter, that is 0.25 and 1.25. From here I'll impute 1.25. So I'll just go ahead and connect this to my bust point, connect this to the bust point as well. Then finally I'll go this way and connect. Can you see? So that is what we have. So and we are done with the front piece. So there is going to be an imaginary line which I'm going to make right here, because we are cutting the lining and the fabric in different ways. So from this point I measured. Note that how I got this point was from shoulder I came down by 6.5 inches. So I will just go ahead and draw a straight imaginary line at 6.5 inches. So this straight imaginary line, you are going to see why we did that. This is our center front line. So if you notice on the thumbnail, you will see that this particular dress in front, it seems there is no dart on it. So I'll show you how that is achieved. But there is a dart on it, but on the inside. So what we are going to do, I will leave it the way it is right here for now. We'll move over to the back to create the back. So to create the back, I'll still go ahead from the shoulder and measure the 6.5. So the line has to be the same. So I'll just simply draw my line, and then I mean this line of 6.5. Then I'm going to get the midline of this, the midline of my shoulder for the back. So this is the midline. Then I'm going to connect to my dart line. So I'll just create a dart line, although I'm not using that line anyway. So my dart line, I'll divide what I have on my waist circumference, divide by 4 by 2. So whatever I have on that line, I'll transfer it to the chest line. So on this line, I'll just simply come down. I'll come down by 1 inch. So I'm just pretending this is the position of my dart leg if I'm making use of a dart, but I'm not making use of that. So I will use it to connect my back to the midline. I believe you understand. So this should be the dart position. So from this point, that is where we are going to have any curve of your choice you want to make for the back. So anyhow you want the back to be is all your choice. So for this particular back, I'm going to make it as deep from the 1 inch. I'll make it as deep as 7 inches. So if I make it as deep as 7 inches, then I will connect my curve from there. Can you see? I'll just connect my curve from there to form the curve. So that becomes the back for us. So for this dress, I'm using a zipper, but what we have on the thumbnail there is a loop. So I don't want to expose my back. That's why I'm not making use of the loop. But in case you want to make use of the loop, it's very simple. Measure 1.5 inch on the center front line, 1.5 inch. And this is your loop line. You cut off here. So what you are going to cut is only this part. So this is going to be your loop line. That is if you want a loop for it. But for me, I'm not using any loop. I'm using my zipper. So since I'm working with my zipper, I'll simply come in from the center front to contour the center back by 0.75. So once I've done that, I'll connect it to the neckline this way. Can you see? Then I'm going to replace this 0.75 here. So but what I usually do is just to take my measurement once again from the contour line and take my waist circumference divide by 4 again. I'll come to the bust line and take my bust circumference divide by 4. So if I do that, I've replaced every dart of my choice. So this is it. So I'm not making use of a loop. So that means I'm going to cut from here. Since I'm not making use of a loop, so I simply cut here. So if you're making use of a loop, just cut from here and go this way. So I'll just go here, cut off what I have here. So this becomes my neck line for the back. Then another thing I'm also considering for some people that do not want their back too open, but we are working on what we have right on the thumbnail. So if you don't want your back too open, you can do 6 inches or 5.5, but it's not usually fine for this particular kind of neckline. So we'll just go in here we just go in here and cut this. After cutting out the pattern, I would like us to cut out the fabric. To minimize our fabric, I'll go over to the fabric cutting now. I'll be using a cotton fabric. Okay, so this is pure cotton fabric and it's 6 yards. I'm making use of 6 yards. So these 6 yards of it, you can see I have it already folded. Okay, so I just want to show you the first thing you are going to do. The first thing I want to cut out is the strap, is the ruffles on the down part of the dress. So if you look at the down part of the dress, you can see we have some ruffles. So this cotton fabric comes at length of at 60 inches. Okay, I just took the measurement, 60 inches. So I will be marking out from the edge of the fabric. I'll be marking out the ruffles, and these ruffles we are going to also weave the two ends of it. So the ruffles I'm going to cut out right here is 2.5 inches. So I'll mark 2.5 inches. Then I will mark another 2.5 inches. So that will be the length of this ruffle. So I'll just go ahead and cut out this, and I will weave the ends. That will be for the ruffles in between the two at the down part of this dress. So that is the first thing you will do, so you can be able to manage your fabric effectively. So now let me quickly cut out and weave and show you what I mean. I'm done cutting out and I've weaved the two ends. So this is what I mean, as you can see right here. So after weaving the two edges, this is what we'll have. So I will have about 2 inches. Can you see? So these 2 inches, that is what we are going to ruffle in between on the down part of that, right? I believe you understand. So we are going to ruffle it. So for the 6 yards, I've cut out as I've shown you. So you need as much as possible, so be able to have enough ruffle on that part. So I'll set it aside. Then we'll move over to the cutting of the flare. It's time for us to start cutting out the flare. So this dress is divided into 2 sections. This is the first section, that is shoulder to waist is the first section, and the length is 17 inches. Then the hip to where I will attach this is 28 inches, and this will be 18 inches length. So how did we get it? From shoulder to the floor length is 62 inches. So now if I take away 17, okay, from my shoulder to where I want it is 45. So when I take away 45 from 17, the length I'll have from here to here is 28 inches. And from here to here, the remaining, if you add this and this, take away from this, is 18. So I want you to have this in mind. So now this is where we are sewing the ruffle, which I just cut out right now, in between the flare and the gathers. So now we are going to move over to the second section. This is 1, 2, and 3. So we are cutting number 2 right now, which is the flare. So I'm going to cut this flare at 180 degrees. So that means I'm using my waist measurement, and I'm going to divide my waist measurement by 3.14. So the waist measurement I have here, which I'm working with right here, is 38 inches. So I will divide my 38 inches plus 2 inches for zipper at the back. I'm going to add zipper at the back. I'm also going to join the sides because it has a pocket. So if I'm joining this side, I will just use 2 inches to join them. That's half an inch this side, half an inch. So I'll add another 2 inches. So everything is 42 inches. Divide by 3.14. So whatever I have will serve as my radius. So just use your waist circumference, add 4 inches to it, divide by 3.14. That is what we are going to use to cut out this flare. So I just calculated my radius now and I got 13 inches. So note that for 380 degrees we are going to fold it. I'll show you how to fold it now. So I have 13 inches as my radius plus the length. This is the length we are working with, 28. So this 28 inches, when you add it together, everything will give us 41. So when I'm folding, I'll make sure I have 41 inches. Just follow this instruction, you will get it. So I'll come back with my fabric now. I'm going to place my fabric. Normally, you know how we have fold our 360 degree. So this is my fabric, 180 degrees, sorry. This is our fabric. Simply fold it this way till you get the length of 41. Can you see? You place it on fold till you get the length of 41. So I will place it on fold now to get. I've folded my fabric at 42. I added 1 inch for my seam allowance. So now I'm cutting out the radius at 13 inches, as you can see right here. So the length is 20. So now I've cut out the flare. As you can see, all the places I marked, I cut it out. So next is to cut out my radius. So after cutting out the radius, next is to notch the center front. So this center front we notched right now. We are going to match it up this way, okay? We'll match it up this way to cut out the sides. Like I said, the side will have a pocket attached to it. So later we'll come back to it. I'll show you how to cut out the side so you'll be able to attach the pocket. So I'm done cutting out my flare. So if you look at the remaining fabric I have here, that was where I cut the flare from. So I'm working with 6 yards. So if I take off this side, I automatically have the remaining fabric at 3.5. Okay. So this 3.5 yards all together, I've already placed it on fold and double fold so that it will be easy for me to cut out the straight part of this dress. So I'll just cut out. So I simply cut out the flare parts. So I've cut out the part of the flare, which is 2.5 yards. So I have 3.5 yards remaining. So these 3.5 yards, which I've placed on fold and double fold, I'm going to measure the down part. So we are working with this now. We are working on the 3, which is 18 inches. So this 18 inches now, I'm going to cut it out at the length of 18 and 3.5 times 2. So because we are going to gather that part, so I'll just go ahead and measure from here. I'll take the measurement of 18 inches, which is the down part. So this 18 inches will have to include my seam allowance. I included my seam allowance there. Then another 18 inches, I will include it again, including my seam allowance. So I'm going to cut here and set it aside for the ruffle on the down part. I'm done cutting it right now. So by right, the length is supposed to be 18, but I looked at my half length measurement because I still need to use the other fabric for the half length. Okay, so I just did 17. That's what I'm talking about. So if your half length is shorter, you can go ahead and do 18 inches. So now this is what I'm going to gather. I'm going to gather this part to the down piece. So I'll join them. When we start joining them, you'll see how we are going to do it. I will join and gather to the down part. So I'll simply set it aside till we get to that point. So now we are done cutting 2, 3. We want to go over to the upper bodice, which is it. So I've gone ahead to cut out my fabric. So this part I cut on that imaginary line. I added 0.5 inch. This is on fold, 0.5 inch for seaming allowance and 1.5 inch for the side seam. So this part is going to be the front dress. So we are going to use our elastic to create that drape at the center front. So I'll make a notch at it and set it aside. So we are now going to cut out this, and we'll cut the lining with it. So here is my back pattern. I've already cut out the back pattern, normal way of cutting. I changed my mind. I made my neckline, instead of 7 inches, I made it 5 inches. Okay, I don't want it too open. Then added my seam allowance, so that's why you have it this way. So I added 0.5 inch all around to the armhole, 1.5 inch on the side, and 1/2 inch, just normal. Okay, so this is dartless, just normal. So I have 4 pieces of it. I have lining. So the lining, you need to get a lining, a matching lining. The 6 yards will not be enough for lining. It's only for the front fabric body. So I just got myself lining and hairstayed them. You can see that. So now I will now go ahead and cut out my pattern. So this part is going to be for the lining. So I'll cut it using my lining as well. Then here I will now come in with my normal pattern I drafted. So the lining is going to be the base for the draping. Can you see that? So this is it. I cut this out, which is the dart. We don't need it. So I'll simply go ahead and close my bust dart. So I'll use my seal, my gum or adhesive. So now it will be nice you match this to see if it's matching. So you can see it's matching on the center front, so it's okay. So now I'm going to cut out this on my lining. I'm done cutting out my lining. So this is my lining, and that is the part that will carry the bust tee. So this is the bust point. I just made a notch to the bust point and the under bust too, so that when I'll join it will be easy for me. So I added 1.5 inch on the side, 0.5 inch all around on the neckline, and here is on fold. So I'll quickly go to my machine now. I'm going to join this. I'm going to join this normal way. So I've already hairstayed it, and I will join it. So I'm going to join it now. So after joining it, you can see I have my bra cup. So we'll be using our cup right now. This is a shell cup, a rounded cup. It comes in small and big size. So I just use the big size. The small size is for very small size, and big size is for normal size. So that is the cup I'll be using for this. So let me quickly go and join them together, give it a good press, then show you how to attach the cup and drape the front bodies. So I've joined my lining. So this is what I have for my lining. So on the cup area, I'll just bring in my cup, and I'm going to quickly sew it with my hand, needle and thread here and here. I'll also stitch with my needle and thread. So that's why you need this rounded cup. We use this rounded cup for draping. So I'll just attach it here and here. So I'll quickly do that, then we'll start draping. So here I'm done stitching. I stitched on the under bust and anywhere here. So once you drop your cup, make sure it drops at the under bust, and then you stitch the upper part. So this is what it's going to look like when I wear the dress at the lining area. So now we'll bring in our front dress. Now we want to drape the front dress. So the first thing I will do is to put it together to identify the center front. So this is the center front, and I'm going to make sure I use my chalk, because this is where I'm going to drape right now using my elastic. So now this is the chest line. So I mark my chest line. So my chest line is 9 inches. I'll place my tape at 9 inches and measure my underbust at 14 inches and rule a line across. So now I'm going to take the measurement from this under bust. Now I'll take it, the measurement to the top. Here I have 7 inches, so I'll just go ahead and divide whatever I get, that is 3.5. I'll add half an inch to it, that is 4 inches. So here is the elastic I want to make use of right now. So I'm going to measure this elastic at 4 inches. Simply go ahead, measure 4 inches. So I've measured the 4 inches. So I'll go to my machine now. I'll step down by 0.5 for sewing the neckline, and I'm going to drag this. I'm going to drag it. So when I drag it, this is what I'll have. Okay, so I'll just drag it to this point. That's what I'm going to have at the end of the day. So let me stitch at it. So after stitching the elastic, the next thing is to place the lining with the cup right side to right side. You can see. So I will advise, when you are securing with your pin them according to the neckline, and make sure the lining is your guide as you sew, because you can have an excess, little excess. You can see I have just little excess because I'm trying to push this squared part into the real neckline. So make sure you align and sew 0.5 on top of the lining. Okay, that's the only way you can get this fitting appropriately. So I'll come in at this point, I'll make a notch. So with this notch you'll be able to turn it. So I'll make my notches as usual. At the center front, sweetheart, I'll make my notch. Then once I get to this point, I'll make my notch diagonally as well. Then you can reduce the excess coming from the main fabric. So I'm just trimming it to the shape of the sweetheart. So after that is done, we can now easily turn to the front. So but I'm going to top stitch by flipping all my seams to the lining. So I flip all my seams to the lining, and I'm going to top stitch around it. Give it a good press, then bring it back to show you what next to do. So I'm done ironing the neckline. So make sure the neckline follows the sweetheart. So the next thing, I also went ahead to sew the neckline for the back, and I'm joining the shoulder seam line. So after joining the neckline, I'm going to shaping the sides. So to shaping the sides, I just want to show you, especially for this draped part, I'm going to take the measurement from my center front. I'm measuring my bust circumference divided by 4. So my bust circumference divided by 4 is 10. I'll mark. And my waist circumference divided by 4 is 9.5. So I'm going to also mark. So that's how I'm going to shaping it, because definitely there will be an excess for this particular part. So just go ahead and mark it, and then I'll do the same. Bust circumference divided by 4. I'll mark on top of the cup. I'll mark my 10 inches, and I'll mark my 9.5. So I'm going to make this line, because I'm going to stitch the back on this line. So now in stitching for this particular one, I will bring in the back of the lining, and I'll place it this way. So placing it this way on the lining, I'll still take my bust circumference divided by 4 plus 1 inch zipper. I'll mark. I'll take my waist divided by 4 plus 1 inch zipper. I will mark. Then I will do what? I'm going to do this. So after doing that, I'll pick up here where I have the seam, the line. I'll match it with this line. That's the only way you can get this to take off the excess. Then I'll mark this to this. Can you see that? So I'll also take away, just start from the hem, okay, because the excess will be at the up. Just start at the hem and secure with your pin. So this is what I'll also do to the other side. So you see the excess and you are sure you have what you need. So I'm going to stitch right here. When we turn, we'll trim it to the armhole. Let me do that. I'm done joining them the seam lines right now. So what I'm going to do is to match them, lining and fabric on the seam line towards the waistline. So I'll match it. Then I'll also match here and here, so you can see automatically the front has the excess. So the excess right there, that's what we are going to trim off. So I'll keep it this way and I'll just simply trim off what I have. So make sure you match here and here before you trim off. So I'll mark, I'm going to just use my chalk to mark out the part I'm going to trim off. I'll also do the same with this one. So I'll straighten it, I'll stretch it into the upper one, then I'll trim off the excess. So I'll quickly do that now. After trimming out the armhole, I'll bring in the 180 degrees flare. I'm no longer cutting it, I'm not adding any pockets again. So I'm going to sew the straight, joining the straight part to the flare part. Okay, so now you can see the gathers is on the flare part. So I'm going to also run my gather stitches at the center, then make my gathers. Then I'll make my gathers and place them at the center. I'm going to stitch at the center to cover up that part. So that's what I'm going to do now. So like I said, I have two of them here. I'll just, you know how we cut it, I showed you how we did that. So I'll just stitch close at the center front, then I'm going to make my gathers. Let me do that. So I just want to show you how I'm gathering this strip. So I'm just using my hand on top of it and I'm just gathering it anyhow I want. I can split it, I can box split it anyhow I want. Then I make sure I stitch in between the stitching line. So you can see what I already have. So I will keep stitching, just take them because what we have on this strip is more than enough, and at the end of the day it will still have we might have an excess and cut it off. So it's better we have an excess than we have a shortage. So that is why I have to cut a very long one and weave the edges. So I'll continue till I get to the end. So this is what I have after gathering it into this part. Okay, so you can space it out, you can design as you want, but I like the ruffles when they are much this way. So the next thing I'm going to do now, I'll bring in my upper bodice. So this upper bodice, you can see I've secured it with my pin and I'm going to align it appropriately. So here at the center front, I'll come into the center front of the flare and I'm going to pin. So I'm sewing both the lining and the fabric. The reason I want to do this is because of this elastic. If you sew only this to this, it might not really give us what we want. So the drape still needs the base. So I just pick it up here on the base, it stays perfectly. So I'll go to my machine now and I'm going to sew from one end to the other. I'm sewing it to the bodice. So I also cut my lining at 180 degrees too. So I've made a notch at the center front. So I'm going to place my lining this way. I'm going to place it to the center front as well. You can see my notch. So now I'm going to stitch again on this line from end to end. Okay, thereby we'll have a perfect inseam finishing. So after sewing the zip, we want to cut out the sleeve. So for the sleeve, I've added 1 inch seam allowance and 0.5. So here I'm cutting my sleeve at 9 inches. Okay, so this sleeve is going to be at the bicep. So my bicep, which I'm working with, is 8 inches, and I added 1 inch to it for stitching up and down. So now the next thing I'm going to do is to create my notch. That will be my sleeve grain line, and I'll also make a notch to show the part of the front sleeve. So this is the basic sleeve that is going to carry the balloon sleeve. So I will set it aside, and then I'll come in with my fabric for my balloon sleeve. So for the balloon sleeve, I just cut out a square rectangular fabric like this. So this rectangular fabric, cutting it for the 2 sleeves, and the sleeve length I'm going to work with. I'm working with, it depends on how you want this to fall. So since we are attaching it to 8 inches basic sleeve, I'll just add 5 inches more to allow it to fall. So it can be 5, it can be 6 inches. So I'm attaching it to 9 inches. I'll count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 inches, and then let me make it 6 inches and use 1 inch to stitch it up and down. So in other words, the width of your basic sleeve should be at 16, and the length of your basic sleeve is your round sleeve divide by times by 2.5. So my round sleeve is 20. I will times by 2.5. So I will have about 50 inches. So the length should be about 50 inches. So here I have almost 50 inches. So I'll just go ahead and cut out this to give me 16 inches. Then I'm going to gather into the basic sleeve. So let me do that. Here is my basic sleeve, and I'll pick up one of my basic sleeve right now. So this one of my basic sleeve, I'm going to mark the part that is for the wrong side. This is wrong side and wrong side. I'll gather it to the basic sleeve. So after gathering it to the basic sleeve, I put the sleeve together. I have to put it together. Can you see how I put it? So I'll be able to have a neat inseam finishing. So I'll open up the seam for the basic sleeve and open up the seam for the gathered parts. I'll match them up together, secure with my pin. Then I'll just make sure I turn everything. Okay, just turn everything around. That's what I want to do, because now we will secure here with pin, and we'll find the midpoint of the basic sleeve and find the midpoint of the gathered sleeve. So I'll hold it down this way, go to my machine and do what? And gather. I'll concentrate all my gathers right now. I'm concentrating it on this part. So I'll do that right now. Starting, go ahead to sew the sleeve to the body of the dress. Right, so I'm done sewing the balloon sleeve. So this is what it